Fox News alert for you. The massive search that's underway in California for an extremely dangerous suspect, ex-cop Christopher Dorner. Cops are saying he's lethal. He's already killed 3 people, possibly out of revenge. And Dorner left a manifesto, his words chilling. Suppressing the truth will lead to deadly consequences, he says, for you and your family. There will be an element of surprise where you work, live, eat, and sleep. What triggers this kind of deadly and violent behavior in a person? Let's bring in Dr. Alan Lippman, a criminal psychologist, executive director of the study of violence, or Center for the Study of Violence. Good to see you, Dr. Lippman. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Jamie. How are you?
Good. This guy is not only dangerous, it's really frightening, not just for the public, but even for authorities, because he knows how they operate.
Not only does he know how they operate, but he's in an intensely homicidal frame of mind, and he is armed to the hilt. So there's no question that this is a dangerous guy, and if we're going to catch him, if we're going to get him, we've got to know how he thinks. And so I want to tell your viewers a little bit about what the very probable inside of this man's thinking is like based on his 11-page manifesto, okay?
Please do.
So, look, first of all, one of the things that you may not know about this guy is that although he was on the LAPD before this, he has a long history of explosive, violent episodes. So he was tossed out of high school for fighting. He was tossed off the football team for fighting. He lists in his manifesto other violent episodes that he's trying to justify. So this, first of all, is a very explosive man, number one. Number two, he's someone who is so sensitive to any kind of insult or slight that in that manifesto, he's talking about things that happened in his childhood and burning with rage about them as if they happened just yesterday. And finally, the third piece that we need to know is that if we look at this manifesto, it's filled with grandiosity, with, in other words, very high ideas of self. He says, for example, I will bring unconventional and asymmetrical warfare to those in LAPD uniform, whether on or off duty. You've misjudged a sleeping giant. There's no conventional threat assessment for me. Now, what does this mean in terms of the people who are trying to catch him? This means that he is a classic A1 narcissist, a narcissistic personality disorder. This doesn't mean he's psychotic like a Jared Loughner. This is someone who is filled with rage, who becomes enraged and murderous very easily, and when this 2009 firing occurred, became so homicidal and enraged that he's the kind of guy who is likely to want to go out in a blaze of glory, and this is the kind of thing
that's
that
what
we
I wanted
to watch
to ask
out
you,
for.
Doctor. You say he's homicidal. Do you think at this point he's suicidal?
Jamie, let me tell you something. I've been doing interviews for the last 48 hours, and you are the first person to pick up on this. When you read that 11-page manifesto, what you have to realize is that is part grandiose declaration of intended violence and half suicide note. Some of the people who've been following this story may be wondering, why did he mention Jerry Seinfeld and The Hangover and all these seemingly odd references? Because that was the suicide note part of this, saying goodbye to all of these things that he appreciated. Now, part of that is suicide by cop. It's quite likely, I'd say 50% likelihood, that he will present himself before officers, not because he wants to give himself up, but because he wants to confront his accusers that he's so enraged at, and so he expects to go out in some kind of blaze of glory. The other possibility, though, is that instead of narcissism, this is someone with bipolar disorder. If you look at the end of this manifesto, there's all of these references, and the grandiosity and the length of the statement suggests someone who may be driven enough, especially with the media attention, that he may want to try to keep it going, and that attempted boat escape is also supportive of that idea. So we've got to look for both of those possibilities.
But let me ask
that's
you
what we got to look at,
Doctor, because there's a lot of people who are high-functioning bipolar. Okay, do you have any evidence that he's ever been on medication or treated?
Well, we have evidence that he has come into contact with people who have confronted him about his violence. Now, let's talk about high-functioning bipolar. There's
well,
bipolar.
You know what? Let me. I don't want to use time. I have very little time left, if you don't mind, because I do want to ask you. He's left clues,
Sure.
Doctor. He left his wallet, the car. But he's been spotted in places, but not
Sure.
most recently. Is it possible that he's already taken his life somewhere, or you are more certain than not that he's someone that may take? It's reported he may have a .50 caliber weapon with 5-inch bullets. Does that sound more like this personality to go out that way?
Jamie, look, and your audience needs to know this. Number one, he's reported himself as being clinically depressed. That suggests that we're probably going to find a history of treatment. If there's bipolar, it's bipolar 1, not bipolar 2. Serious. That suggests that there is a strong possibility that he may have already taken his life. There's 3 possibilities here. One, he's going to offer himself up for a confrontation, in which case he'll be taken down. The second is that he's already taken his life. And the third is that he's cannier than he's let on, and he's going to try to stretch this thing out as long as possible and try to get away with it. I would say the likelihoods are probably in the violent realm rather than in the escape realm.
Well, I hope they catch him before we have time to bring you back, honestly. And if, you know, I got to throw this in. If you see him, we've shown you more than enough pictures. Just pick up, even if you call anonymously, and help the officers. We don't want anyone else to lose their life. Dr. Lippman, fascinating discussion. Thank you so much.
And a good interview. Thanks, Jamie.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that.